This episode is brought to you by Set for Life Insurance. Protect yourself against life setbacks with Set for Life Insurance. Set for Life Insurance gets you disability and life insurance at a reduced cost with their exclusive discounts. Now that's why I use them. Visit www.setforlifeinsurance.com and tell them Dr. Darko sent you.
Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry. You're getting real life insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Nee Darko.
Hey docs, are you looking to learn how to become a physician leader? Then Physician CEO is for you. Physician CEO is an accelerated business immersion program designed for physicians and developed by MBA faculty from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. So learn more at www.physician-ceo.com/DOTB. What's up? What's good? Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. Really excited. I am Dr. Nee, the Doc Outside the Box. And listen, we got a really good episode coming up. But before we get into that episode, I really want you guys to please go back and check out episode 77 with Dr. Heidi Mawad. All of you docs who are interested in non-traditional careers, or at least transitioning and learning more about that, this episode is for you. She's the author of the book Careers Beyond Clinical Medicine, currently right now available on Amazon, as well as the website nonclinicaljobs.com. You all need to go and check out this episode so that you can get some concrete steps on how to transition out of clinical medicine into a non-traditional career path. And this was a great episode. I enjoyed it. So please make sure you share with those who you think would definitely benefit from that episode. Now, on today's episode, you're going to hear from another physician podcaster. This time we got Dr. Dianne Ansari-Winn, and she hosts the popular podcast called Doctor's Life. And I was a guest on her show a couple of months ago, and we kicked it on all things related to podcasting. And the link to this episode that we did together is going to be in the show notes. So make sure you go show her some love, show this episode some love, and make sure you click on the show notes for that one. Now, she's on my show. She's on the show to really talk about her podcast, but not just about the podcast, but more importantly about her journey and her journey through burnout. Okay. We're talking about college by the age of 16, playing by all the rules, getting all the credentials, getting all the qualifications, and then, all of a sudden feeling burnout. But we're going to get real with it. She gets really granular with this. You're going to hear the first person account, the step-by-step process of how someone recognizes that they're actually going through burnout, the signs, the symptoms, the conversations that occurred, not just with her coworkers, but also with her family, her husband. But with all the stories of Docs Outside the Box, there's a happy ending to this, right? She's been able to beat burnout. She chronicles that. And now she's coaching other docs on, guess what? Actually, how to coach other doctors. That's pretty interesting. So look, this is a good one. I'm not going to talk too much on the intro about this one because there's a lot to learn in this episode. But make sure you share this episode on social. Hit me up on social media with everything at Dr. Nee Darko. Remember, that's DRNIIDARKO. And without further ado, I present Dr. Dianne Ansari-Winn with the Doctor's Life podcast. Dr. Dianne Ansari-Winn from the Doctor's Life podcast. What's up? What's good? Welcome to Docs Outside the Box.
Hey, it's so great to be here, Dr. Nee. It's great to be here again with you since you were a guest on my podcast.
Yep, I was on your show and it took me so long. I got to get people on my show more often, so I apologize for taking so long to get you on my show. But yes, we did do a collaboration together where I was on your show and we talked about podcasting. And I had some people reach out to me about either the book or just in general, our podcast in general. So that was really a fun time.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm really glad. We just want to get the word out, help people get to where they want to be, get these docs outside the box.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And podcasting is definitely, the biggest thing right now on the block. And it's a really easy way for doctors to get their name out, not just from a branding standpoint, but also just from if they're starting a new practice or what have you. So I had a good time talking about it. It's something that I'm really passionate about. I know it's something that you're passionate about. And I wanted to have you on the show to talk about your road, about your podcast, about things that you're doing right now that obviously are outside of the box. So before we get too much into the nitty-gritty, let's take a step back. Let's talk about where you trained at, where you're from. Let's do all that.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm an anesthesiologist by training. I went to University of Michigan, go Blue, undergrad,
you guys got blown out this past weekend.
Oh, God.
Depending on when people hear this show, it'll be relevant or not relevant.
Oh, my word. Yeah. Well, let's just move on. Yes, Michigan, undergrad, medical school, and public health school. And, that's actually part of my journey as I was just, I was a really high achiever. And I actually started University of Michigan at the age of 16.
What?
Yes.
Are you serious? I didn't know that.
I did. Yes, I did. And I went straight through, sometimes you have to take a couple of years off, do research, et cetera. I just incorporated my research into my summers off and into my undergraduate years. I went straight into med school, met my now ex-husband in med school.
Uh-oh.
No. It's all good. It was all good.
Okay. All right. No drama, no salacious stuff here on Docs Outside the Box, I guess.
We're going to stay totally positive because every experience is positive. But I guess my point was to say that, I kind of accumulated all the things that you would think that make you a success, right? So I went straight through med school. Even when I was taking a year off from med school, I got a master's degree in public health and health behavior and health education. Then I went into residency. After my internship here, I got married, had a son and a daughter, went into practice.
Dr. Dianne, you're real busy.
That's what I'm saying, so I keep busy. The point is that I did all these things, these high achieving things. And then, I started to burn out and I didn't know what was going on.
What was that feeling like? Because you don't get that flash that says burnout. So tell us some of the symptoms that you're having or the signs that you're seeing.
Well, the deal is that it's actually really insidious because I think it dovetails a lot with the things that we experience as physicians. So one of the things that you start to experience is fatigue. We're tired, you work ER and I used to do anesthesia and you age, over time. So you think that fatigue might be just from, years of sleep deprivation, which it might be, but it's also it's this sort of fatigue that isn't ameliorated by no amount of sleep can make it any better. So that's one thing that you notice. It's like an emotional exhaustion in addition to physical exhaustion. So you just run out of capacity. The things that you used to do or used to enjoy don't regenerate or renew you as they used to. And then the other thing is that there's a couple other things that come into play that definitely were, in my case, where I was feeling like, even though I was really still good at my work, I was feeling like I wasn't good at my work. So I was that doc that gets requests from the surgeons oh, take care of my mom. Oh, take care, this patient needs TLC. They used to love me on OB because I would communicate with the patients, love that. And I just felt like I wasn't that good at my job. So that's another thing another piece of burnout. You're still good at your work, but you don't feel like you're good at your work. And then last but not least, what I noticed was sort of the death knell for me in terms of really pointing to that I might have burnout was that I was starting to feel like my patients were a burden instead of a privilege to take care of them. And from the get-go, from my days at U of M, we were always taught, and I really held in my heart to take care of my patients like I would take care of family. They always say that's someone's brother, that's someone's sister, that's someone's mom sitting in front of you, and you owe it to them to take care of them like you would a member of your own family. So I was still doing that, but feeling resentful about it. So I actually ended up, it was like a coming to Jesus kind of day, but I was in my psychiatrist's office because I really thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I had depression. And this in Denver, six, 7 years ago. Looking out a beautiful plate glass window at the mountains. It's a beautiful June day in Denver. I should be outside doing something. Instead, I'm inside her office crying my eyes out again because I thought there's something wrong with me. And she said, you know what? She goes, you have burnout. And you really need to look at balancing out the toll that your work is taking on you versus like what you're getting out of it. And you might consider taking a break. And so that just turned my world upside down because I was like, well, who am I? I'm this high achieving person. Who am I going to be if I'm not a doctor? My husband's a doctor. All my friends are doctors. Like my family's so proud of me. Like it's in your bones. It's in your blood. But eventually I did decide to leave clinical medicine 6 years ago. And that actually led me on the journey to meeting you.
Yep. What was that conversation like with your husband? Having that conversation that you're going to be leaving medicine. I'm assuming he's still practicing clinically. What was that conversation like? And even tell us what that conversation was like with your colleagues.
Well, I got to tell you, it wasn't easy, because as I was saying, he and I met in med school. We actually met at interviews and we didn't know we were going to attend the same school, but ended up
like serendipity
together. Yes, right. So we studied together and we were together for so long. So medicine was kind of interwoven, within our relationship too. And, two doctor family. I know that you're in a two doctor family yourself, right? So, to talk shop and all of those things, you just have so much in common. And I think, the actual conversation was actually at, the end of a series of conversations. But, I think he was supportive, but didn't understand it. And which I get because we had a very traditional view. We started med school in 1987. So it's a very traditional view of medicine, as opposed to what we're kind of looking at now where people are doing more part-time work or they're integrating their medical work into other things. They're being more inventive, creative, dynamic, just like you describe all the docs that come on your podcast. Back then, we just had a very traditional view, you see patients and do research or maybe academics. But, if you didn't work to exhaustion, you're kind of wimpy. What are these docs that have it easy? Even people thought oh, anesthesia, you've got it so easy. And I'm do you realize that we still even I was working quote unquote part-time, I was still taking at least one night a call, one weekend, I was doing 24-hour shifts. I was in private practice. So I would start whenever they wanted to start, 7 or whatever, finish 6 at night, still have to go home, call my patients for the next day. I mean, the life isn't easy. So that was a challenging conversation for sure. And not only for he and I, but myself and I, it was really one of the hardest things I've ever done was to leave clinical medicine, go into non-clinical. But I have found so much joy in this, not just the non-clinical work, but the work that I do with docs around coaching docs around stress and burnout. Now I teach doctors how to have coaching conversations, how to be coaches so they can support each other. I'm very excited about this because I really think that this is the wave of the future for us as a profession to really be able to come together and support each other and talk to each other in a real way about the stresses of medicine, but not we're adversaries with medicine. We know that medicine is hard work, but oftentimes we isolate, we do it alone, we don't share our struggles, and we don't have the support that we need. And that's where I feel that our path is going next as a profession is to answer that question. How can we help each other do the best work we can possibly do and stay healthy and at capacity so that we have the life that we want? Not just the lifestyle, but the life, the relationships, the energy, all of that. And I think it comes from helping each other.
So during those 6 years, of walking away from clinical medicine. How did you, quote unquote, find yourself? How did you find your way? I'm kind of interested as to, what happened in between that time. And then you decided to, start helping other physicians. What kind of techniques did you use? I'm just really interested and fascinated during that time.
Oh, sure. Well, I've been coaching docs. I started coaching before I even left clinical medicine. I've been out for 6 years. So I've been coaching for about 8 years now, 7, 8 years. And how I first got interested in it was I was looking for help myself. That conversation that I'd had with the psychiatrist was kind of like the culmination of a number of conversations that I'd had over the year with her, but also a couple years before, so maybe 8 years or 9 years ago, I met a physician coach, and they were hard to find then. But I was really inspired by the work that she was doing to help docs. Things are different now, but
I can imagine back then there were few and far between, and now you have folks in residency saying that they're physician coaches.
Right, I know.
Wait, hold on a second.
You were asking, how did my colleagues respond? And, when I said I was thinking of leaving clinical medicine and going into a non-clinical job, because I was only 43, 44, I wasn't ready to retire. I don't have to come from that kind of wealth and hadn't built that kind of wealth. Although I know now that it's interesting that as physicians, we're having discussions about how to build that kind of wealth so that you could actually do that. But that certainly wasn't my story. I'm from the generation that was buy bigger, buy larger, take bigger trips.
Right. I got you. Yeah.
Put more bling on, So I spent a lot of money.
And work to your 60s. I got you.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So going back a little bit, so I first run into this physician coach, and she said, what do you want to do if you want to leave medicine? I go, well, I want to do what you do. I think it's awesome. And so I actually pursued coach training. I'm a certified professional coactive coach through the Coaches Training Institute. That took 2 years. I've trained in leadership, which is a year-long program through them. I have certification as a certified physician coach. So I pursued a lot of training. And then I've also been working with physicians off and on for the last 8 years. So it was driven by my own personal need. And how we are, we see the need in ourselves, and then we want to share
our gifts
with others. And I just get so much satisfaction from that. And I've just seen the need grow and grow, over the years. There's just so many more docs that are coaches, and it's become more of our mainstream conversation is to how do we have a life that includes medicine as opposed to fitting our lives around medicine. So it's a real shift in our consciousness as a profession, I think.
So now you have a podcast called The Doctor's Life.
Yeah.
Actually, I have that as part of my playlist. Why don't you tell the audience more about your podcast, why you started it, who's this podcast for?
Yeah, great. Well, I started The Doctor's Life, and if you listen to our episode, if you guys want to listen to a fun episode of The Doctor's Life, listen to the interview that Dr. Nee and I did.
That was fun.
Where we talk all about podcasting and break it down. If you want to know how to do podcasting, Dr. Nee breaks down in this podcast. But I got started podcasting because I found that I enjoyed interviewing. I'd done a series of interviews for my coaching business, and I found that I really enjoyed doing interviews. And I wanted docs to start talking about the cool things that they're doing outside of medicine. So it's similar to what you're talking about. But I also wanted to talk about topics that we don't necessarily talk about all the time. I actually like the tag for my podcast, The Doctor's Life, is the Mobile Doctor's Lounge. So kind of what are we talking about in the Doctor's Lounge? But, I'm a woman physician of color. I want to talk about additional things aside from sort of the mainstream things that people are talking about. So I also incorporate interviews around diversity and around having more people of color in medicine and things around health equity. And so that's my personal bent on it. But I like to think of it as if you walked into the doctor's lounge and you were sitting with a group of doctors, what would you want to talk about? What would you be interested in? What would they be talking about? And that's kind of how I look at it. So that if you were the doc that in the doctor's lounge, or if you're not a doc and you can't get into the doctor's lounge, you still have your finger on the pulse of, what's happening.
And you can find that on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, basically everywhere where you can get your favorite podcast, you can find that. And now, a word from our sponsor. Understanding how to run a business in medicine will put you at a unique advantage in the future. Whether it's leading a hospital, practice, or starting a new venture, the Physician CEO program will put you in focus from day one. Physician CEO is an accelerated business immersion program developed by MBA faculty from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. The Physician CEO program provides an intensive MBA-style education made up of modules, with each module covering topics from leadership to entrepreneurial ventures. Because of their individualized structure, each participant leaves the program with their 1, 3, and even 5-year business plan, all designed to function in the real world. If you're a physician who is looking to start your own venture, lead your practice or department, or even start planning for succession out of medicine, then you can't afford to miss this opportunity. Class is filling up. Learn more at www.physician-ceo.com/DOTB.
Yeah, or everywhere you can find Dr. Nee's podcast.
And that's everywhere.
And it's everywhere.
Now, look, now you're, like you said, you've been coaching for 8 years, but you're coming out with your Physician Coaching Academy. Before we get into that real quick, I want to ask you, because you've got the certifications to back this up, you have gone through the training, which a lot of people don't really necessarily go through. Talk to the audience about how to, first of all, find, a credible coach. What is it that they should be looking for so that, you don't find anybody who's just deciding just 1 minute just to become a coach? Because, these are really difficult emotional things or issues that someone could be going through. So you want to make sure that you're finding someone who really knows how to handle that, particularly with burnout.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's a couple of things that you want to look for when you're looking for a coach to hire. And that is someone that has done some kind of coach training. It's just a different way of having a conversation than mentoring, or what we're used to doing as doctors is sort of a prescriptive way of talking. Like everyone, if you were to go and talk to a colleague, some assume some anonymity and all of that, but coaches have the same ethics that you would if you were like in a doctor-patient relationship. I don't mean legally, but I mean in terms of the ethos of it. So we're trained to speak confidentially and also to be like a safe space, a safe container where you can talk about whatever is coming up. Now, coaches are not therapists. We're, make sure that we're goal oriented. Even if your goal is like, I need to get my life more straight, or I'm trying to decide whether or not to leave medicine, or, I want to get my finances in order. The idea is to help you work through those things so that you can get to where you're going. The cool thing, as I was saying, is there's coaches that you can hire to do that. I work with individual private clients, but I also founded the Physician Coaching Academy. And what I am doing is training physicians how to be coaches. So by the end of that training program, you will be able to have a comprehensive, effective coaching conversation with a peer or anyone. You could talk to anyone as a coach, but the focus of the Physician Coaching Academy is to train powerful physician peer coaches, because what we're finding is that maybe you do want to talk to someone, but you don't necessarily want to hire a coach outside, or maybe just, so this is like within departments, or for example, this is an awesome example. One of my students is a residency program director. So she already has residents that come and talk to her. And she came to me and she said, Dianne, I don't know exactly how to talk to these residents. And the Coaching Academy came out of a need, actually. It wasn't something that I founded thinking that's what is the wave of the future, although it was my thinking. But I had been asked from various sources, including a major university training program, hey, you know what? I think what you're doing is great. How can we train people like within our department to do what you're doing, at least in a limited fashion? And I always thought, well, they should probably hire me. Like
like,
but,
ta-da, I got it.
but the thing is, there isn't enough of me. And so I feel like this, if there's a department that wants to have their own peer coaches or an organization, and they wanted to teach docs how to peer coach other docs, then, kind of who better to teach it? Because I have the training and I have the experience with talking with lots of docs about all kinds of things. And so I started the academy just 3 months ago, and we already have our first class running, and I already am enrolling a second class for January, and that's almost full. And that has really just come
Always
from
the high achiever.
right. It's come from people
Always
coming to me, though. That wasn't.
No, this is good though. This is awesome. I'm giving you kudos for that.
But oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. It's so transformational.
So how do they learn more about, like, is there a website or what have you?
Yeah. They can come find me, www.drdianne.com. That's www.drdianne.com. That's the easiest way to find me. I'm also on Facebook at Dr. Dianne. I'm on Twitter at Dr. Dianne MD, Instagram. You can find me on all social media, Dr. Dianne MD.
Now, can you give us like a perfect person who would be great for this course or an avatar for this academy? Because this is actually pretty fascinating, like a doctor teaching another doctor how to coach someone. I don't think you really have that out there.
I would say that the person that's ideal for the program is a doc or someone that's close to docs. Like I have someone that's like vice chair of one of the departments of medicine at this institution. I won't go and name it, but so there's
Dr. Dianne. This is Docs Outside the Box. We keep it 100% on it.
Okay, well.
Oh, I was actually going to bleep it. I have to bleep it out. Come on. I was just teasing you. I didn't know you were going to drop it, but okay.
Well, did you know that I accept errors?
I'll bleep it out.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So the deal is that I think that any doc that really wants to have meaningful conversations with other docs, be a resource for other docs, benefits from coach training. Even if you're interested in having better conversations with your family and your friends, you can benefit from coach training. But I would say that ideally it's someone who is interested in physician wellness, interested in having more balance in their lives and promoting that with other doctors. It's ideal. And what makes my program unique is that it's a program for physicians that's taught by a physician. So the examples that we bring and the things that we talk about, we get each other. We all meet online and we form a little crew and we coach each other. We help each other because you can't just come and listen to lectures. It's very interactive. And so we get each other. And it's been a very transformative program. I just feel so positive about it. And I think that any doc that's in a leadership position or wants to be in a leadership position is ideal for this as well. We don't have this old paradigm now. Things aren't as rigid as they once were, where when I was in training, it was definitely more of sort of like a hierarchical paradigm, and it still is that way. But having a humanistic approach in training and in the way that we practice, I think it sounds a little strong, but it's going to be the salvation of our profession.
Now, I want you to talk to those who are listening. Obviously, with Docs Outside the Box, we're talking about just alternative, career paths, alternative lifestyles. Obviously something that, that wasn't your experience during your training, right? I think that's fair to say. So there's got to be someone right now who's listening who, when you first described those three things that you were feeling, those three things that put you on the path of recognizing that you had physician burnout, can you give any type of advice to kind of start that process of getting past that?
Yeah. The first thing is that you are not abnormal and there's nothing wrong with you for having these feelings. Burnout is not a personal failure by any means. Medicine is really hard. It's a really difficult profession, and it takes a lot out of you physically, emotionally. It isolates you socially. It can. There's a lot of loneliness in docs. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. But anyway, you're not alone. You're not nuts. And the second thing is to put yourself first. I know doctors do not do that, but really integral to your own health and healing is to put yourself first, in the sense that it's not being selfish, but to make sure that you're taking care of your own health and well-being. There's no other way for you to have the capacity to be able to give to your patients and to the people around you that you care for if you don't take care of yourself. And, that's like a whole nother topic in and of itself. I will do a quick little pitch. So I do have a book being released in January called Dr. Heal Thyself.
Dr. Dianne again.
Break it down.
High achiever. Let's hear about your new book.
Oh, it's entitled Dr. Heal Thyself. It's going to be released in January. And it actually is a whole description of the system called the Physician Vitality Recovery System that I use with my clients. And actually what I'm telling the audience right now is just a distillation of some of the concepts in that book. So taking care of yourself, making sure that you're not nuts, getting support are the three main things that I would say. Just first dig down and take care of yourself. And then you can, because it's not going to be, some people say, oh, I'm burned out. I need to do this. I need to do that. The first thing you need to do is take care of yourself first. Mm-hmm. Once you're back on track, then you'll be able to make, and you may need a coach to help you do that. Then you'll be able to make cogent decisions about what's next for you. But if you're running away from medicine thinking that things are going to be better on the other side, it's the classic Zen saying, right? Wherever you go, there you are. So if you take yourself with you wherever you're going, you take the same habits and the same approach to things, you're going to find that it's possible that you could burn out over and over and over again. And that's what I needed to learn. And I'm still learning, right? That's, Dr. Nee has pointed out, I've got things going in a lot of different areas and I love it all. And
I'm going to make you choose now then, since you brought that
up.
To
be perfectly honest with you, I'm getting to the point where things are going so well in so many places that I'm going to have to make some decisions about how I do things to make sure that I don't burn out on doing what I love to do, which would be
let's start now. I'm going to put you on the spot. So since you obviously you're so successful with what's going on, and I know you're extremely humble and by all jokes aside, but obviously since things are popping off in so many different realms, I'm going to put you on the spot and make you have to choose one. So if you had to podcast, if you had to continue coaching, what else? Writing as an author and being a physician, what do you prefer to do out of all of those things? Pick one.
I love teaching this school. I just love the Physician and Coaching Academy. I really believe that it's like a ripple in this pond where if I can teach 5 docs, which I'm teaching now, and I can teach another 10 docs or 15, or 50 in a year or 100, if I can teach each of those docs how to have conversations, and they only had a conversation with 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, I see you're going for legacy.
Yeah, it's not just, and it's well beyond me and my business, what I'm doing. I feel what can we do that's really going to change? Just like what you're thinking of doing and what you're doing through your podcast and your efforts. What can we do to help our fellow clinicians? And so that is what has literally come to me, knocked on my door and said, you really need to do this. And I answered the call. And so I'm very, very excited about it.
Love it. Love it. So we're getting towards the end of the interview. Let's do some fast fire questions. You just tell me what comes off the top of your head. Don't think too much about it. You ready? You game?
I am always game.
All right. Let's try to bring this down to one thing. What's the one thing you want people to grab from this podcast?
Oh, take care of yourself first before you take care of anybody else.
Righteous. I love it. Okay. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you have given yourself as a pre-med? This is a good one.
Yeah, I would have explored options in medicine outside of the primary specialties. I would have looked at radonc or PM&R, seriously looked at it. Whereas I just did all the main stuff. And I didn't even do an anesthesia rotation before I started anesthesia residency. Can you believe that? But I am kind of a risk taker.
Okay. All right. Well, what's a personal habit? What's something that you do normally that has helped you become very successful or at least be a doc outside the box?
One of the things that I've done is I've really incorporated mindfulness and meditation into my life.
I love it.
And people think that's a paradox but you actually have to slow down to speed up. You have to slow down to have that capacity to be able to give it your all. Sometimes you need to gather up your energy instead of flying in all directions. And I found that meditation and mindfulness has really been beneficial.
That's been a common theme with a lot of the successful guests that I've had on the show, including you. And that's something that I've incorporated more into my daily morning routine, at least is waking up and at least, having gratitude. And I know everybody uses that term gratitude and, abundance, but literally just being able to wake up and, know what I have and be very appreciative about that. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So name a famous figure, and this may apply to you or not, but there's got to be someone that is famous, someone that you admire, someone who inspires you that you would like to trade places for just for 24 hours.
Oh, trade places.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. I thought you were going to say admire from afar.
Mm-mm.
Well, I'll step off that ledge. The same person was Michelle Obama.
Oh, okay. All right.
Michelle
Obama, you'd like to trade places with for 24 hours. Okay. All right.
I didn't think of it until now, but what the heck?
She's right in your backyard. Well, actually, no, she's not. I mean, you're in Chicago, so.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good answer. What's one life hack or piece of technology that you use that makes your life a little bit easier?
Okay. I have two. One is Zoom. That's what we're on now.
Love it. Yep.
I teach my courses. I do my podcasts, etc. That's not a plug for Zoom. It really is awesome.
Well, they need to start paying us, though, because we all use Zoom. I'm off that Skype life. That Skype narcotic was just ruining my podcast episode. So I got off of that.
Yeah, I remember when you did my podcast, we did it on Zoom and I was hipping you up. I was yeah, switch over.
Oh, yeah. You're the one who actually, I think you were the final nail that made me decide to come off of Skype. Yeah, I quit that long time ago now.
Yeah. And then I have another one that you can do it. It's a free app. Speaking of mindfulness, called Stop, Breathe, and Think.
Stop, Breathe, and Think. It's an app?
Breathe, and Think. It sounds weird, but Stop, Breathe, and Think. They have upgrades, but I use the free version. I'd actually had it suggested to me by the chief meditation officer at Aetna, who I had interviewed for the podcast. There you go.
It's on Android, everyone.
It's awesome.
It's not just Apple love. It's on Android also.
Yeah, it's awesome. Stop, Breathe, and Think. Guided meditations, meditation timer, short videos on how to relax. And it's just a must for people who want to continue to reach high without, being like Icarus. You got to ground. However you get there. Taking 5 deep breaths before you start a podcast, for example. Taking 5 deep breaths before you go into the next patient's room. Just really incorporating it into your life. Just so beneficial in my life. So
now, Dr. Dianne Ansari-Winn, I want you to complete this sentence.
Okay.
I'm not just a doc. I'm a...
Oh, this is a fun one.
We all been fun. Come on now, Dr. Dianne.
Well, this is, I'm not just a doc. I was never just a doc. And I will never be just a doc.
Yeah, I've never had that one before. That's good. I love it. Say it again. I'm not just a doc.
I was never just a doc. And I will never be just a doc. One of the greatest compliments I had from another doctor was a few years ago when I first started coaching and I was telling what I was doing. And she said, you know what? He goes, you're really dynamic. That stuck with me. That is one of the finest compliments I've ever received in my mind, because it means that I'm using my skills in a variety of ways and I'll just keep moving forward and morphing and being interesting to myself and hopefully to others.
No, we love it. We love it. Now, Dr. Dianne, I want to thank you very much for coming on Docs Outside the Box, sharing not just about your journey, but also what you've been able to do in terms of giving back to the physician community also, right? It's not only important just to gain that knowledge that you've used to, get you out of physician burnout, but also I think it's just as important to come back and reach those who definitely need some help, definitely some who are even listening to this show. So I just want to acknowledge you for what you're doing. I want to wish you all the best of luck with the book release. And this is really a fun and definitely learned a lot from this episode with you. So thanks again for being on Docs Outside the Box.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nee. It's always great to be with you. And I look forward to seeing more of the great work that you're doing.